Hello.
Hello, Daniel Lammin. Welcome to my car
Thank you very much.
and driving home, our new interview series. Can I offer you a drink?
Oh, yes, please. What have you got?
Just take one of
Thank you.
these.
Oh, that's very fancy.
We try. We go to effort. That's the
It's not one of those that's going to pop, is it? You're not going to break the roof of the car or anything.
I am intending to injure someone.
Well, it makes it more exciting.
I think so. Oh no, it's all right. Welcome.
Thank
What we
you.
like to do is encourage drinking in the car. In
A few
general.
government bodies that might disagree with you, but
Cheers.
thank you.
It's very alcoholic.
Oh, that's quite nice.
Yes. We met briefly
Mm-hmm.
after the conclusion of Short and Sweet,
Yes.
which you did okay at.
All right.
Okay, how did you do?
Well, we won Best Production and Best Director, which was...
Two awards.
Two awards, which was quite unexpected.
But I mean, 2 awards is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. I won 4, but 2 is good. So what I want to talk to you about is your development up to this point,
Mhm.
how you've got to this point in your career.
Mhm.
I imagine it's mostly sexual favours and bribery.
Oh, totally.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Who have you sexually favoured?
Look, there have been a few overseas directors that have come across. Yeah, pretty much. Ian McKellen,
Mm-hmm.
Judi Dench.
Both
Even-
such sluts, too.
I know, totally,
Such
totally,
sluts.
totally. But you know, go down on Judy, you go far.
Yeah. Alcohol time. Did you study?
Yes,
What did you study?
I did my undergrad in performing arts at Monash University in Clayton, and then I did the postgraduate directing course at NIDA.
Okay. In Sydney?
Yes,
Because I think that's the only place you can do it.
yeah. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where have you lived?
I've lived in western suburbs of Sydney, in the Blue Mountains in Sydney.
Where did you live in the western suburbs?
In Parramatta.
Oh
which is
my
where I was
gosh.
born.
I used to live in Toongabbie.
Really?
Yes.
Are you originally from Sydney?
I'm originally from Brisbane, then I lived in Sydney, then I lived in Brisbane, now I live in
Aren't
Melbourne.
the western suburbs awful?
Aren't they? I didn't know that they were awful until I grew up a bit. I could have been killed.
Exactly. I went back there when I was about... I left when I was a little kid and I came back when I was about 15, 16 and I was terrified.
Yeah, it's a terrifying place.
Mm.
So where else have you lived?
I also lived on a farm in Queensland,
Mm-hmm. Where in Queensland?
just outside of Bundaberg.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Is the farm still there?
No, not
As
at the
in-
moment.
No, it wouldn't be there at the moment.
It's kind of
A lake?
under... Yeah, pretty much. Then off to Sydney for a year.
And then back.
Then definitely back.
Prefer Melbourne?
Much more.
Yeah.
Much more.
To Sydney compared to Sydney?
NIDA was the only reason that I went to Sydney, and once I wasn't at NIDA anymore, I didn't
It-
see a reason to stay.
That makes sense to me. So what was your kind of first out of NIDA directing production?
It was actually my graduating production. They toured it. They decided to tour some of them down to Melbourne, and they toured mine as one of the two. So it was kind of the weird experience of having to redirect a show in a completely different space.
Yeah.
And then I went
And
in...
what was that show?
It was adaptation of Allen Ginsberg's Howl.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the...
Not very challenging, kind of simple.
Not at all. It was kind of a walk in the park, to be
Yeah,
honest. It was kind
sounds
of
like-
boring.
Yeah, it does sound a bit...
Yeah.
I mean, you just graduated. You can't expect too much of yourself.
I know, exactly. But then pretty much from there it was assistant directing
Mm-hmm.
on a number of shows and
Okay.
then slowly doing little things.
Name drop.
I assisted for Gary Abrams on the Laramie Project.
Yep.
Also AD'd for Matt Lutton on The Misconception of Oedipus at
Okay.
the Malthouse. Kind of half AD'd, half assisted for Van Badham on the remount of The Economist that went to Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm. Did you go to Edinburgh?
No, because I was working on Oedipus at the time.
It's disappointing.
I know.
Yeah. Do you have plans to go to Edinburgh?
There are vague
I
plans.
think everyone has vague aspirations.
Not.
Yeah.
I'm not as. Yeah. I need to be a bit more convinced.
Would you?
Oh yes. No, please.
Okay. So, finish that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just need a bit more.
That's much better.
It's important to keep it a bit classy, I think.
I think so.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh. That's an effort. Look at that. You practically had to jump in that thing.
I really wish I had a fun straw.
That would make it a lot more exciting
And classy.
and classy. I'm mainly, in terms of the work that I've written, I've mainly directed it myself, more so just to test it out first. But I've also directed quite a bit that isn't mine, and tend to, in some ways, enjoy that a bit more.
More.
Well, it takes the added stress off of having to justify your own work and having to because the nice thing about directing your own work is you get to fix it as you go, but the other unfortunate thing is that you then realise that a lot of the problems are yours
And
to fix.
anytime that you're like, oh, this is not working.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's
Not me.
my fault.
I can't just blame the playwright. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I have to take.
Have to take responsibility.
And then if depending on whether it goes well or not, even more pressure is on you if it does or doesn't.
Do you think there's an element of control that you kind of like? Have you had to reconcile that you sacrifice an element of control in directing something that you haven't written, and that there might be elements where you're like, I really wish I could cut that if only it wasn't crucial to the story? Or
Yeah, sometimes, but generally I've been very lucky in that every single play I've ever directed has been one that I've genuinely loved. So I usually don't have as many problems with the plays, or they're plays that are old enough that I can cut.
I guess because you also write, is there a temptation to fix? Like, that struck me. The play that I won for in Short and Sweet, I didn't write it, and I only direct my own work normally. And there was moments where I was like, really wish I could rewrite that line, or maybe I'll just rewrite it a little bit, or I'll keep the intention but change the text a little. Do you have to kind of hold that part of yourself back, or do you kind of let it go? Do you just do it?
You come out now. Good.
Keep going.
Sometimes I'm lucky enough that I'm working with a script that a friend of mine has written, so I can go to them and go, look, this isn't working. But generally, not really. The two times that I've worked with writers that weren't friends of mine that were still alive were the two previous times I'd done Short and Sweet. Like, the one that I just did was the only time I've ever written it myself, mainly because they would never accept my scripts because they were too dark. And most of the time I was actually quite happy with the scripts as they were, understood the conceit of, okay, these lines don't work, or this bit's a bit naff, but look, that's just the way this script's going to have to go, and I have to work around it, or maybe I just need to, make a point of it, or just find a way to solve that problem.
Around it.
Basically.
Yeah. In putting together a show, what's kind of your directing philosophy? I don't know. You might
Kind
be
of
able to...
overriding principle.
Yeah,
for me.
you come up with the question and then answer it.
Okay. When I was studying, there was kind of this one concept, this one idea that I kept coming back to. Because one of the things that they asked us at NIDA was, what's the thing that makes your work your work? So what's your kind of principle or motto as a director? And it kind of came down to this quote, and I don't know who it's from. I think I may have found out who it was from, and I wasn't very happy with it, so I just decided to forget. The purpose of being a human being is to tell the story of what it is to be a human being.
Yes.
So that's kind of the big...
It's a good quote.
Yeah. It always goes back down to that question of, what does this have to do with what it is to tell... what the story of what it is to be a human being? Stuff that I have no intentions of ever answering for myself. I don't expect that I'll ever come to some sort of, personal epiphany about what it all means. It's more just, it fascinates me.
Do you think that means then that you're more drawn towards potentially darker material, more complex material?
Most of the time. I mean, with me, I'm definitely drawn to darker material. Very dark material. Sometimes, occasionally, it's nice to do a play that doesn't, or a work that doesn't involve, kind of those elements, and I'll usually find a way to put them in it. But, yeah.
So your sitcom would probably be terrible.
Yeah, I imagine so.
As far as then, actually going through a process for your work, so, for instance, I'm quite hands-off in my directing style, and I attribute that to my laziness. So, it's the illusion of directing as far as I'm concerned, and that's kind of my process. So, would you say you're kind of more involved in making decisions, coming up with creative solutions to things, or a bit more hands-off, or is it this balance?
Kind of a bit of a balance of the two. I'm definitely hands-off with the actors. I much prefer to see what they can bring, generally because you're probably all better, you're more intelligent and more talented than I am, so I want to see what you can do. It's always kind of used this thing of saying, you've got if you've got a cast of 8, you've got 8 extra brains in the room which come up with
Yeah.
8 extra ideas that are probably going to be 8 better ones better than you. So why wouldn't you
And you'll get the credit.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly.
Actors don't get this.
They
I
don't,
know
and
why
they
actors
and then they
act.
think that you're being this nice person. Listen, so it's like that's fine. That's fine. My name's on the review.
Yeah.
So, ooh,
I know. I've been.
excuse me. This
yeah.
is. Whew.
Yeah.
God knows what's going to happen when I finish this. Like, theatre is the medium that I love to work in, and it's the one I probably will continue to work in until anything changes. But the funny thing is that it's not my favourite medium. Film has probably had the biggest influence on me than anything else. Directors like, all the usual ones, like Stanley Kubrick's my favourite director. David Fincher is the greatest director in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Spielberg and Haneke and all those kind of people. But I've always had this idea that you can learn a lot from the principles of film and the things that make great films work and apply them to theatre. And that's not saying, using AV in theatre, but it's a thing of, the rhythm that film suggests, the editing. I kind of believe that editing is something that we can do on stage, not in terms of editing the story, but editing the visuals, using lighting or using sound or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So in terms of the biggest influence on me would probably be films. Like 2001 and Lawrence of Arabia and Funny Games in particular. Yeah.
It's interesting that kind of crossover, because I definitely started interested in film, and I guess my main focus area now is television. That's kind of what I love. I love television. I'm currently watching the 2nd season of Girls, and I
haven't seen any of Girls yet.
It's extraordinary. And every time I watch it, I just go, I give up. I'm never going to be this good.
Yeah.
She's my age.
Isn't that awful?
Yeah.
I realised the other day, Citizen Kane already made by... Awesome was already made Citizen Kane by our age.
Yeah. What is it about theatre? Why theatre?
The immediacy, the constant sense of panic and chaos.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you have to make decisions, you have to make them right now, and you have no time to think about them, and there's always an element of danger. And the fact that at the end it doesn't exist anymore. You can't just go back and watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm always very much like, when I generally don't have post-show blues, and I don't kind of sit there and go, oh, I wish I could do that show again. When it's done, I'm like, okay, good, great.
Next.
Put that aside. What's going to happen next?
So it's for you then, it's the primacy of the experience.
It's like...
Let's just end on a wank note. The primacy of the experience.
Well, it's like in a film, if I was to make a film and put it in a screening, I'm probably not going to be there to see things like what happened with Short and Sweet, of people walking out or people being disgusted. You don't have the immediacy of seeing what the audience actually thinks.
And I think actually that idea that you kind of played with in Short and Sweet, if you did that on film, not one person would have left.
No, because it would almost feel like it was that's the kind of stuff you expect to see in film.
Yeah, and there's the distance of the screen.
And it's not the actor's looking straight at you, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, that's a real person looking at me, talking about this thing that I don't want to hear about.
Yeah. That's really, really wanky, but interesting at the same
Totally.
time.
That's our job, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this entire series will just be wank.
Well, that's what we like talking about.
Continue.
We've paid a lot of money to learn how to be wankers, so we might as well put it to good use.
Might as well put it to good use. And on that charming, heartfelt note, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
In the Driving Monk's car for driving home, Daniel Lammin.
Thank you very much.
Some dude who just got in.
Do you want me to go?
Please, leave the white glass.
Do you want me to get an actual director in next?
No, a model.
Okay. I'll look.
Thanks.